Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Storytelling, our newest show here at Astrology Hub. And this is your place for connecting with the stories, myths, and magic of the starry sky. And I am Amanda Poole Walsh, the founder of Astrology Hub. I am here with our storyteller, Gemini Brett, and we are both so excited to be here with you. I first wanted to thank this incredible community for all of the outpouring of well wishes for my birthday / solar return, which we're going to talk about because there's been some confusion for me personally about which day I'm actually having today. So I can't wait to talk about that. And I just really wanted to thank all of you. It's been so sweet to feel this warmth and love and gratitude from all of you. And I am just sending it right back to you. I'm so grateful to be here with you now on my birthday and always. So thanks for being here. That's number one.
Happy birthday.
Whoa, that was the best. Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much, Brett. Whew. All right. Not every day you get serenaded by a saxophone. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay. So Brett and I have been working out the format of this show, and here's how we're going to roll. And we may change, but this is how we think we're going to roll. At the beginning of each episode, we're going to review the scavenger hunt activity from the week before and any sort of questions or reflections or things that came up from the previous episode. Then we are going to introduce a new topic. So today it is the moon as heavenly midwife. And then we're just going to give you a little bit of, then Brett will give us our next scavenger hunt activity. And then we'll give you a little bit of an insight into what we'll be talking about on next storytelling. Brett, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, kind of before the scavenger hunt, we'll drop like some kind of theme of the night, some poem, some myth, maybe a starry story, the transmission of one of the constellations, who knows, but that'll kind of be the body of the thing. So today we're going to go and hear a story from Greece.
Awesome. Okay, so first we're going to review the scavenger hunt from last week, which was to say goodbye to Jupiter, who is disappearing from the night sky, and also say hello to Mercury, as Mercury is getting a little bit higher in the night sky visibly. Right?
Aces,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
Mercury went from invisible to visible, and Jupiter from visible to invisible. And it's something that modern astrology doesn't tend to pay too much attention to these days. But the ancients told us that at these times, this significant state change, these planets would saturate the chart. And so, with actually Saturn and Jupiter now disappearing under the sun's beams and Mercury emerging, there's a lot of that energy, a lot of like extra Aquarius energy, right? So that thing's still alive. That happened on December solstice.
Exactly. All right. So we had this assignment, and normally here on Maui, I can see the horizon really well every night, but it was amazing. Every single night since we got the assignment, there was a thick band of clouds right at the horizon line. So I couldn't see Jupiter or Mercury any night since we've had this assignment. But I thought this was so perfect because so I was feeling frustrated about it. It's like, oh, I can't do my assignment. And you know, Capricorns like to do their assignments. I couldn't do it. So I was in yoga one night, and I was in Shavasana at the end of a really beautiful, delicious class. And I decided to just connect with them in my imagination or in my vision. And I just said, hey, I just said thank you to Jupiter for all of the lessons of the last year. I said hello to Mercury and welcome, and I'm excited to see you again. And I felt so much warmth. I felt so connected to both of the energies that I realized seeing them is great, but we don't always need to. And so I wanted to share that with you because I know not all of you, some people were reflecting in the comments from last week, oh, I can't really see the sky, or it's been so cloudy and I can never see the sky in the winter, or whatever is happening where you are. But I just wanted to validate that we can still have that connection and that communion, even if you can't see it visibly. So Brett, what would you like to say to that?
Well, a bunch. One, in that Shavasana, even where there's kind of no directions, it's still helpful to know like where you are on Earth and where those beings are in any moment. And so really learning to get directions. And that's something that I'll be presenting along the course of these storytelling episodes, and especially in the course that's coming. And we'll wait for Northern Hemisphere good weather for that course. So, our apologies to the Southern Hemispherians. And the first time I taught astronomy for astrologers, it was January, and it went for a while, but it was like nobody could really do a lot of the exercises I was asking them to because the clouds would not allow. So, a beautiful thing about Astrology Hub is, of course, that we are global. And I was able to see Mercury every night but one since you and I last met a week ago. And I've been taking some pictures, and I'll share some of those today, and I'll continue to do so. And when my sky shuts down, I hope other friends from somewhere where it is clear will kind of take up the torch and share and show us what they're seeing. So that's something I'm really hoping to inspire. Plus, when we get views from many different places on Earth, you start to get to see this image of like our global connection. And
Mhm.
the truth is, Hawaii has a bit of a different view than California, certainly Australia or Brazil in a very significant way. And so that's going to help us not only like, tend to the global nature of this hub, but also help us experience in a more embodied way what that's all about. So I'm really looking forward to that developing. But principal things I say is like, just because you don't see them doesn't mean they don't see you. And just because you don't see it doesn't mean you don't be it. So, of course, the astrology is happening anyway, unless you're, drinking a whole lot of television or whatever and choosing to stay asleep. But if you also bring yourself, right? And even if it's raining out and you can't see them, if you sit in that direction and you give that offering of your time and your presence, I believe that they will offer you more presence.
Mm, they certainly did. And I was able to feel them in the direction, like you're saying, I could feel where they were approximately in the sky as I was lying there. And that actually did make a difference in how I was experiencing it. So thank you for that. And like Brett said, you are very encouraged to share your scavenger practices and any pictures you take or any reflections that you have underneath these videos. So in the chat, if you're watching on one of the social media platforms, you're welcome to also email in. We had someone email in their story to support@astrologyhub.com, and we're going to be reading a part of it today. We got an amazing letter from Leslie. Okay, so the next thing is that because it's my birthday, Brett gave me an assignment, and anyone who has a solar return now and or whenever you do have a solar return, to actually connect with the earth and the nature and the sky at the time of your actual solar return. So I did that yesterday at 6:10 a.m. And again, the weather was completely not cooperating with me. I can't remember the last time that it's been like a torrential downpour when I wake up in the morning. I mean, it's been months, months
Mm.
and months. But it was literally like a huge tropical storm downpour all day yesterday. And so I was again bummed that I woke up and I was all ready to do my little ritual with the sky and connect with it. But then I got a text from Brett and he said, why don't you just go and light a candle and listen to your soul song? And I was like, oh my God, that's a great idea. So for those of you who don't know what the soul song is, Brett and Eric Deutsch, who is an amazing pianist and composer, teamed together to create these songs of the soul. And they're based on your birth chart. And it's this original composition, gorgeous, beautiful music that is based on the song of your chart. And so they gifted me with one. Many of you saw that episode. And so I went outside, I lit a candle, and I just sat there and I listened to my soul song. And the soul songs they're very evocative. Like it was really emotional for me to listen to it. And there is a part in my soul song that gets really intense, like almost uncomfortably intense. And I thought about the invitation that so many of the astrologers have given to us, which is to find comfort in discomfort,
Mm.
to really just be in that energy instead of like, oh God, this is too intense, I don't want to feel this and I need to distract myself and I need to look away, to really just feel it and allow it to be really present in your body. And and relax, relax. So I did. So it was amazing to have this experience where I got to kind of, I have a question about the Song of the Soul, by the way. Like, is it linear? But you can answer that later. Is it like a timeline of your life, or is it like, is it is it all just sort of wrapped into one thing? But don't answer me that out right now. Okay, so that was number one. The next thing is, well, actually, do you want me to wait for this? My reflection on who am I really? Like my complete confusion around the solar return versus the birthday.
Yeah, I want to read Leslie's because
Okay.
she had a similar thing.
Okay.
The Song of the Soul is not linear. There are some linear elements, like what I give Eric, and friends, if you haven't heard of it before, we did a really fun podcast. I surprised Amanda with a much better song than a saxophone birthday thing. Um, and you get to hear from Eric, who's this just wonderful musician. He plays with the Dixie Chicks and Citizen Cope. And for those of you who are in the know, Nora Jones, Charlie Hunter, and a lot of Ron Miles, a lot of just great jazz legends who are heroes of ours. And yeah, so what I take from the chart is signs that are occupied by planets. Those define the notes and they limit Eric, actually. The first thing is like literally limitation. So he's not allowed to play every note on the piano. And so that's based on the chart. And then the chord progression. And it's like he's allowed to go free from it. But the suggested chord progression is based upon the way that I read a chart from the moon through the sun to the rising sign, and from a kind of Hellenistic point of view, the so-called steersman of the ascendant. So there is a little bit of a linear nature there, but I think a really important thing about the sun is every year is a new birth, and about the earth every day is. And so next time we'll speak more about the day.
Mhm.
Do you
And
want me to share?
if anybody's interested in checking out the Song of the Soul, you can go to astrologyhub.com/Song of the Soul.
Yeah, and you can order one there. We're actually getting through our list. Thank you so much, people who supported us and are supporting this project and received a song, or who are still waiting. We've had a list a mile long. Like I've never
We're
worked
back
so
ordered
hard.
through February, right? I mean, we're back ordered through
Yeah,
February. Are
we're
we?
into March right now, but it's
Yeah.
also starting to lighten up. Like for the first time, we're seeing the light. So it'd be a good time to hit us with some more work, please. All right, so this is what Leslie sent in, which was just, it really warmed my heart. She said, I wanted to give you both some feedback from yesterday's storytelling segment that was combined with solar return ceremony suggestions. My birthday is January 17th, but I found out my solar return is actually today, the 16th at 6:43 p.m. I decided to do my own solar ritual this morning, however, as my natal birth time, which was 9:25 a.m. And by nature, I am way more diurnal type. So this just made sense for me personally. She set out about 8:45 a.m., she says, and she climbed to the highest point behind her house. She says she lives on the eastern slope of the Sierra Nevadas, noticing along the way all the beauty she's surrounded by. I guess I should read first person. Once I found my sit spot and began creating sacred space, I was interrupted by this thought to listen to my Song of the Soul I received in December. In my coat pocket was my cell phone and wireless headphones, which, to be honest, was a bit of a surprise. I honestly don't remember putting them there. Cell service in the mountains is patchy at best, so I really didn't have faith I would even be able to listen. But lo and behold, the service was there. For 12 minutes, I was taken on my Song of the Soul journey while the sun's rays showered down. My every cell was completely saturated with the story of my existence, with my connection to all that is, was, or ever will be. It's hard to put into words, as you can imagine. I can only tell you that I have never felt such a connection to sun and self before.
Mm. Can I echo that? So, Brett, as I was sitting there, my birth time is 8:10 a.m. in California, but in Hawaii, that would be 6:10 a.m. And I got to really feel the difference of the sun at 8:10, which is
Mhm.
like bright in the sky, versus the sun at 6:10, which is before the sunrise. And just to feel that in my body, like, oh, there's a real different sensation between a sun that's about to rise and a sun that is already really illuminating the sky. So I love what Leslie shares there, because it, again, I think the whole reason why you gave us this assignment was to really start to feel
Mm.
the sky at our birth, around our birth time, to really have a new connection with that. And I think one of the things she shares later is that it solidified her actual birth time for her. Like she got the confirmation of what the birth time is, because maybe there was some question about her birth time at some point. But it was really that connection with sun on solar return, even though it was pouring rain,
Hmm.
it was still really present. So I just thank you for that assignment, by the way. Um,
It's
and,
my
and
treat. And, is it going to be a rainy year? And what does that mean? And you'll remember I
oh,
texted you, right? Like, may these waters feed you for a year of growth,
well,
right?
exactly. And that was another thing. It was like, okay, it's raining. In Hawaiian, that's the ua, the rain.
Hmm.
And what is it? It's purifying, it's cleansing. Like that is the whole. So I was thinking, this is my purifying bath in the rainwaters to embark upon this next journey. So it's kind of perfect in many ways.
It'd be cool to record weather for like a life of birthdays.
Oh,
It's something that actually we have some evidence of on old charts. It's like more like what we would think of as indigenous practice, because it was right from a different place. But which way the wind was coming from? What were the first animals we saw right
oh.
after a child's birth? And just bringing more of, as I like to say, the most important planet, the one that you chose, or maybe chose you. This is Earth, right?
Mm.
And really importantly, this is the truth of following the sun, right? The sun does what the sun does as a reflection of what Earth is doing. The sun rises and sets because Earth is spinning, which we're going to get into more next time, right? The sun gets around Earth's zodiac in a year because Earth is revolving about the sun in a year, right? So the best way to understand what the sun's doing is just look around. And of course, this is going to be different in cooler than it is in Northern California and or in Germany or wherever we are. So it's really cool to get around too and see how, your date of birth in the calendar year expresses itself on Earth in different places. And also the solar return's cool because, we rarely have the same time of the day in a solar return chart that we came in with. And so you get to see these interesting cycles. And that's like a long story for another time.
And let me just say, because this concept, I remember Anna's Brett's partner, who works at Astrology Hub as well. She's the host of Seeds of Light, our new show for parents, and she does many other things too. But I remember her saying around her birthday, "Oh, my solar returns today," and it was November 2nd. And she said, "But my birthday's tomorrow." And I was so confused. I was like, "What are you talking about? It's not your birthday today. It's your birthday on the 3rd." But she was recognizing her birthday on the 2nd. So I was very confused. Then Brett told me that my solar return is on January 18th, which again was like, "What? I don't understand this." I went to Astro Gold, and lo and behold, the sun was at 29 degrees Capricorn yesterday. So it threw me into this whole thing of like, wait, so does our birthday change every year? Is it not? Is the calendar date of our birthday like the fake birthday? Just like last week, I was saying January 1st is fake New Year. It's like based on a calendar system that's not really aligned with nature and natural rhythm. And and I think the answer is probably yes, that it is kind of my fake birthday, and that we do it that way because I was imagining, well, if our birthday changed every year by a day or two, how challenging that would be for this like world. Like when we fill things out, it'd be like my birthday is Capricorn, is sun at 29 degrees. Like that's how I would feel, right? Like
Yeah.
that would actually be my birthday, is sun at 29 degrees. So when the sun is at 29 degrees, that's my birthday,
Right.
correct?
And instead of like when we have a gathering, instead of, hey, let's meet on Sunday at this time, what if we said, let's meet at Cap 29?
That
Right.
is so cool. It would
Yeah.
really encourage us to start to learn how to do this. And so it did. I went to my, like, okay, if you don't have an app on your phone to look at things, Astro Gold is a really easy, simple one. It's inexpensive. It does take a little like playing with to start to orient. Like there's certain things about it that I don't feel are totally intuitive, but you'll get it when you start playing around with it. And so you put your birthday in, and then you put a second wheel in, and the second wheel is for the date or the transit that you want to look, you want to look at dates. So I just played around and I was seeing that, oh, wow, it does change. Like next year, I
Yeah.
think it's going to be
Well,
different.
you need
My,
to find the solar return button in Astro Gold. It's great. Actually, in the app, it's
I
better
don't
than in
have
the
that.
computer software. You can just type in like, oh, it's my, what is your like your 31st birthday this year, right? So you can just
Right.
type
Yeah.
in like
31st.
31 or 32, I guess.
Or maybe 43.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you get to type that in, and so it's just really fast. It's funny. It's going to seem like we're sponsored by Astro Gold today because
I know.
I'm going to drop that name later in my slides also.
We're not, we get no benefit from this, but that's okay. It's a really helpful tool. So the questions for me, from me to you and for everybody.
Hmm.
Is our birthday, um, like the day, an actual birthday, or is it truly like when the sun returns to the same exact degree that it was when we were born? And I mean, that's mainly my, oh, I also, can I say one more thing
Sure.
about what I did on my solar return day?
Yeah.
I had a reading with Gary Caton.
Mm.
Gary Caton is an amazing astrologer, everybody. It was such a beautiful experience. I do this every year on my birthday. I always like very carefully select who I would like to have a reading with. And it's like a very sacred process for me. It's like, okay, who am I going to reach out to? Last year I did Becca Tarnas,
Mm.
and she's also amazing. But it's so beautiful to be with your chart, to have someone else reflecting to you about the journey ahead and sort of getting your map and your lay of the land, even if you know how to read it yourself. It's always brilliant to have someone else's perspective. He brought in things that I wouldn't necessarily look at. And I have pages and pages of notes and lots of highlighters, but it spurred this whole thing. I always ask, like, what would be my like, what would be my animal? If I had an animal or an archetype for the year, what would it be? What would be my mantra for the year? I like the like high level, like give me the
Beautiful.
themes, give me the,
Were
you know,
you asking Gary those questions or you're
yes,
asking yourself? Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, Gary's
yes.
a
So
wonderful cat to ask that to.
yeah, so he gave me lion for the year, which I was like, ooh, I can really
Beautiful.
connect with that because I have Leo rising this
Yeah.
year.
Leo rising.
And
Mhm.
the question that he said I could walk with is, who am I? Which was perfect because I was already doing that because of this whole birthday thing. I was like, wait, my birthday's maybe not January 19th. Who am I? And he goes, that's the perfect question because of the perfection this year being Mercury and the retrograde cycle being in 159.
Hey, you're now guilty of too much astro jargon, which is awesome. You flipped the
Yes.
script. I love it. Right. So we this is so wonderful. It really actually it is a really wonderful thing, Amanda, to see how much astrology you've learned during this quest. And I can say the same for Anna and you know a lot of the A team came in knowing a lot of astrology, but it's so cool to be exposed to this many great astrologers. Gary's a dear brother. He's been a mentor of mine. He's, you know, and Gary, folks should know also, is like the cat with the lens. Like Gary goes out and takes pictures of the skies that will open you up. And you know, there's great astrophotographers in the world, but not all of them have this like astrological connection to the heavens too.
Yeah.
That being said, I will say people who are taking these pictures, they are in ceremony, you know, and the astronomers like tend to gather for happenings like the Jupiter Saturn conjunction, and I don't think they'd call it ceremony, many of them, but there is something here, there is something very sacred about, you know, bringing ourselves to the sky, bringing ourselves to the temple of the heavens. And so of course that's the the devotion of this podcast, very much my own devotion. All right. And we'll also get a little nerdy. So let's talk about this January 18th, January 19th issue, okay? Or as it was for Leslie, I think 16th, 17th, or 17th, 18th. I noticed that, and I think we'll get into this more next episode, about the earth and the earth spinning and the emotion that we don't often see in the chart. It really confuses people, which is just the day and the night. It's amazing that astrology kind of lost for thousands of years that it's different if you're born by day than it is if you're born by night, which really is the most obvious and dynamic astronomy that we experience. And we experience it daily. Yeah. So look, you were born with Aquarius rising, and this year in the solar return chart, it's Leo rising. That's your birthplace, which is the other side of time as the earth spins, you see? So we don't have the same rising sign every year. And the reason why is the year, and this is Earth orbiting the sun, is not an equal amount of days. And it's one of the reasons why creating a calendar is a mess, right? So when we're asking this question of, hey, is this my fake birthday, right? Is this just Pope Gregory's idea of when I, so first I want to address that because numerology is an amazing thing and has a lot to say, right? And there are definitely powerful ways that we can tune to our own growth by looking at how the numbers increase through the years and playing with our calendar birth date and the numbers of our names and much more, right? And so, the birthday book is an interesting thing, and it speaks in some ways too. But astronomically, yeah, today is your fake birthday. Because astronomically, what we're talking about is the exact alignment of the Earth and the sun. Now, I want to just say, for y'all other geeks like me out there are some more advanced considerations where we have to talk about sidereal versus tropical zodiacs and other things that we're not going to talk about today. But just generally speaking, the year is about 365 and 1/4 days long. Right. And when you were asking earlier, well, do we just change? Like, will I kind of stumble backwards through the calendar for my whole life? No, because it kind of recalibrates itself every 4 years with the leap day. And we have a leap day. The most general rule is every year that's divisible by 4, which of course 2020 is. And so 2020 had a leap day. All right. So your solar return last year, Amanda, in Hawaii was around 4:30 p.m. on January 19th. Okay. So we're going to go 365 and 1/4 days from there. First of all, let's just do the quarter day. 24 hours in a day, right? That's the Earth's spin. So 1/4 day is 24 over 4, which is 6 hours. So your solar return in Hawaii last year was 4:30 p.m. and this year 10:30 p.m. Right? So there's that quarter of a day, right? But the other thing is 365 days. So typically 365 days from January 19th is January 19th of the next year. But if they throw in an extra day in February, then 365 days is going to expire one day earlier. You see?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. So
And
it's never going to be like
because-
it's never going to be like 2 days off from your birthday.
sometimes it can be, but usually if you've moved and there's all sorts of things. So I want to make sure I cover all my bases, but generally you're going to have a solar return the day before, the day of, or the day after your calendar birthday. Okay. And it's cool to start tracking the cycles. And so let me just leave that there for now. And I'd encourage you actually to go play with the solar return button in your AstroGold app and look at the different times, right? And I'd actually encourage you at first to use your natal place, your birthplace. There's a very cool pattern that starts to show up. And sometime we'll talk about why 33 is the Christ on the cross year. But maybe enough about the sun. Are we ready to launch
let's go into this week
here?
Yeah, right. So we have the moon as heavenly midwife is our storytelling segment for this week.
As the midwife of the light. Yeah, it's funny because last time we got off, I was like, oh, it's too long. I'm not going to do so many slides. And I literally woke up at 2 o'clock this morning having had a dream. So here we are, a year, Earth spinning 365 and a quarter times, right? 365 and a quarter days in one orbit of the sun. Rotation, revolution. And look at that beautiful image that comes forth. We see the circumpunct, we see the symbol for the sun, which means so much more, but certainly we can see an orbital path around a center point. Earth's orbit is not a circle, so let me do, and this is definitely not to scale, friends, but anyway, from Earth's point of view, it's actually more like this, because we're standing on Earth. So it's kind of like we're spinning around and the sun rises and sets, and the sun's going around us. It's going through our zodiac, right? So it just moved from Capricorn to Aquarius in the tropical zodiac, right? That's a thing. Or is it? All right. So it's so amazing to me, Amanda, not only numerologically, which I'm a huge fan of number magic, right? So January 12th, I got a thing for 12s because, you know, I'm an astrologer, and 112 is 13, and there's things about the moon that does 12, that does 13, and kind of not either of them. And so that was a big deal for me. And especially that our first of these storytelling adventures on January 12th, 2021 was right around the time of the Capricorn New Moon, right? So we actually started as the moon was still closing the previous cycle, which was the Sagittarius eclipse, but just some hours after we launched this thing, moon met the sun in 23 degrees, tropical Capricorn for new moon, the first new moon of the year, if you're into that whole Gregorian trip. All right, so amazingly, here at Storytelling 2, we turn the page, we get January 19th. And I'm going to tell you why 19 is one of the sacred numbers of the earth and the moon and the sun. And 18. So January 19th, this time I'm going to subtract. 19 minus 1 brings me to 18. And we'll take a peek at that today. It's something we'll really unfold later down the road, okay? But this is an amazing thing too, right? Because Storytelling 1, last week we had Capricorn New Moon. And Storytelling 2, with the sun at 11 arc minutes of Aquarius, was another really significant Earth, Moon, Sun change. In this case, actually, the moon's not really part of it. It's that the sun changed signs in what I know to be the Earth's zodiac, the tropical zodiac. So just today, we had the sun's Aquarius ingress. Yeah.
Ingress is just a fancy name for the sun went into Aquarius.
Yeah, ingress means to enter. Yep.
Right.
This is the wrong time, by the way. It was more like 12:30 p.m. So sorry about that. Should sleep more. Anyway, so which of these is a month moment? Is it a new moon? Month does sound a whole lot like month, doesn't it? Right? Why do we have 12 signs? How many moons are there in a year? There's some interesting debate about that, and a lot of people arguing for something that's not quite true. We're going to have to take more episodes to unpack that. But basically, the general theme here is for us to get realigned to natural time. That's like my first push for, I think, many of these episodes. We'll probably have to take a break to really talk about why Mercury retrograde, since that's coming soon to a theater called You. But for right now, you know, one of these images is more solar, that the sun moves through 12 signs of 30 degrees each. That's the 360-degree circle of the zodiac in 1 year. Right? And one Earth orbit of the sun, which we experience, is sun orbiting us, moving through our zodiac about 1 degree per day, right? So that's more of like a solar image of months, right? But notice that the moon's not participating in the sun's Aquarius ingress. I mean, she's always reflecting sun's light, which is what we want to talk about as we get into the midwife. But, you know, this feels a lot more like month beginning if you're doing things the moon's way.
Brett, we were in the car and Madeline was so confused. She's like, wait, why is it a new moon in Capricorn? I thought Capricorn started weeks ago, right? She could, like, it was, why is this the new moon in Capricorn?
Right. Shouldn't it be at the first degree of Capricorn every time? Shouldn't a
Right,
Capricorn new moon be followed by a Cancer full moon?
right.
Not a Capricorn new moon followed by a Leo new moon. And so you see, friends, it's not going to all happen in one episode. So stay tuned. All right. I love that Madeline is asking these questions.
Me too.
Beautiful. And I love seeing some of these really deep, introspective questions of people who are watching the chart and watching the sky in the Astrology Hub Inner Circle and the Global Forecast Forum. I've seen a lot of really like beautiful stuff this year, right? Anyway, so importantly, look, this one was today, January 19th, right? Sun moving into Aquarius. So maybe starting a new month. Um, this one, Capricorn New Moon, was January 12th. Either of these give a shit about the Gregorian calendar, right? So what's up with that? Why don't we just have a new moon on the first of every month?
It's a really
Well,
good question.
it's one of the issues. It's a really tricky calendar to create, and my intention, actually, certainly in the class that we'll teach later on, where everybody's expected to see every class, is that you'll go back and see these episodes, even if it's not your solar return. The whole point of the first one was to explore the truth that the experience of the sun is experienced by our experience of the earth, and the idea of a year, and so much more. And now we want to get a little bit more into this pairing partner, if you will, the moon. So here we see 18 for the moon card of the tarot, the day of your solar return in this month. And here we see 19, the day of your calendar birthday. So they're both right. I do want to say, not only is there numerological significance to your calendar birth date, but there's significance to anything you intentionally celebrate. And so, as we were saying last time, like, wasn't that Capricorn new moon a new year? Or wait, no, wasn't it the sun's Capricorn ingress, which of course is December solstice, winter solstice in the northern hemisphere, summer solstice in the southern hemisphere? Is it the sun moving into Aries? And I'll show you why that's a very significant thing another time, right? Why this January 1st, if it's not astronomically defined? Is that a fake New Year's? And astronomically, yes, but intentionally. When we come together, when we celebrate, when we bring our hearts together, when we bring, good mana to these changes, we can bring change more powerfully as a collective. Yeah. And so, in a sense, this card teaches us that every day is your birthday. And I'd love to like dive deep into both of these beings another time. But for now, I'll just say that I invite folks to, there's a lot to see in each of them. And we'll later find why 19 is 19 years is one of the codes that synchronizes the strange rhythms of Earth, Moon, and Sun. From what I believe Hermes was referring to when he spoke in the Emerald Tablets, the three parts of the philosophy of the whole world. And the moon card has a very different imagery. And the lunar nodes, which we'll talk about in another episode, they are from Earth's point of view, where the paths of the sun and the moon cross. And they transit the zodiac in 18.6 years, right between this 18 card, which, by the way, is a number linked to eclipse cycles, eclipses, sun, moon, and earth. 19 linked to phase cycles of the moon, synodic cycles, sun, moon, earth. And we'll talk more about that next time. So there's something here in this magical code that has a lot to say. All right. Maybe the most beautiful evidence of the magical code, be it the matrix or the goddess, is this amazing thing that from Earth's point of view, sun and moon appear to be the same size in our sky. What? So that at certain sacred times from places on the earth, we can experience the diamond ring of their marriage. How is that even possible? So I'll give you a little number play, which is one of many and a very interesting one. And the number is 400. So the way this works is that, and these are averages, but the sun is about 400 times bigger than the moon by diameter. Huge, but also about 400 times further from Earth. right? So my hand looks bigger than Mount Tamalpais right now in my window, and that's not real, actually, right? So the moon appears to be a lot bigger in respect to the sun, who's gigantic, because she's much closer to us. And how can we tell? First of all, during these eclipses, it was a cool thing for me to experience an eclipse with my naked eye at one point, very close to my solar return in 2015, because I saw what I knew, that the earth is closer to me than this, or the moon is closer to me than the sun, right? But we also know, because the sun gets around in a year and the moon gets around in a month. So anyway, check out this play with 400. I like to draw 400 like this. Cross, circle, circle. Why? Because these are glyphs that I can associate with the earth and the moon and the sun. The earth glyph, we say, is the cross of matter inside the circle of spirit. And this, quote unquote astronomy program, this new program, won't be all science classy. I want to get very mystical, and we'll plant some of those seeds today. And these teachers, earth, moon, and sun, these three parts of the philosophy, they're endlessly amazing. It would be nice if we had a 360-day year with 12 30-day months, and new moon at the first degree of a sign, and full moon at 16, and all that. But there's something actually even more intricate, even more beautiful in the sacred code of these three beings. And the deeper you go, the more it's the matrix or the goddess, and I prefer to choose the latter. So the earth glyph, the cross of matter inside the circle of spirit; the sun glyph, the circumpunct, that maybe orbital path around a center point of source. And we can say so much more about that. The moon, of course, shown with the crescent of soul. But the geometer knows, and this is why my students start with the compass, that to make a compass or make a crescent of soul, as we call it, you need two circles of the same size. And somehow these two appear to be the same size in our sky, and together they create a womb, where I will say they arrange for us the opportunity to manifest into matter. And if that's too graphic for folks, then we can just turn this thing on the side, and I can say, here on earth with the human eye, I can see that spirit, sun, and soul, moon, are the same size. And there's a lot to say about that. But I'm going to turn it back on its side and talk wombs, and we're going to get into a sadly short version of a beautiful long tale, which is that Latona was pregnant with Zeus's child. I should say Latona and Jupiter, because that's the Latin, or Leto and Zeus. I often commit the crime of mixing the Latin and the Greek when telling some of these old stories, and even worse, mispronouncing things. So my apologies for those who speak these original languages. But Latona was on the run because Jupiter's wife, Juno, was not so happy that she carried his son, or was it the moon? And Juno had conjured forth Python, this serpent, to chase Latona. She made an official decree that none could help this woman give birth to these children whose life she would not welcome to this world. So Latona was on the run. And fortunately, she found a safe place to give birth, not to her son, but to her daughter, Diana, the moon. The moon, who we know as astrologers is the queen of midwives. Maybe because she clocked in really early. Her first gig was delivering her twin brother, Apollo. And some say this was 9 days and 9 nights later on the island of Delos, where they found refuge from this python who had been chasing them. So the things I would ask you to hold is that Diana midwifed Apollo's birth, just as the sun is delivered by the moon to earth. Yeah? Later, it is said that Apollo caught up to that python and he put an arrow right through the dragon. And we'll dive deep into that when we speak eclipses another time, because it's surely an eclipse story, though many have seen, oddly, in my opinion, not seen that. We talked about the oracle at Delphi last time, and that was the Python's place that Apollo took over after he slayed that dragon that had chased him within the womb of his mother. Now, Apollo's bow is a rare sight. When do you see the sun make a crescent? Only when eclipsed by the moon. Diana's bow, much more familiar, comes around every month. So here's an image from my scavenger hunt last week. This is Moon, Diana's bow, and we find here Mercury wildly high above the horizon, and this is Jupiter down below, right? So one thing I love to say, and we can get into this deeper another time, the sky has chakras too. And you can see the indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red. This is the beams, and this is the combustion. As Koa screams fire down there. So importantly for now, because you're going to get your new scavenger hunt assignment at the end of this flow, Diana's bow is this kind of first visible phase of the moon every month. And we can see Diana in the sky shooting arrows at her brother Apollo, who has just set below. Importantly, the moon, whether in such a beautiful crescent, let me go back, or more full on our way to fullness, will always be aiming directly at the sun. Right? Moon, Diana, delivers sun, Apollo's birth. Moon delivers sunlight to Earth. The only reason why we see this beautiful crescent, this photo I took from Maui a couple months ago, is that sun is being reflected by the body of the moon. If there was no sun and we managed to live through it long enough to watch, the only way we would have evidence of the moon is if she passed in front of a planet or a star to occult it from our view. Right? What we see in the moon smile is sunlight reflected to us. And for me, this is soul delivering spirit to matter. And it's why these beings exist and why we can do this thing called Earth. In Hawaii, this is called the Hilo Moon. In Hawaii, they have a name for every day of moon phases, 29 or 30 of these names, depending on the month, right? And this beginning, which is not the conjunction mathematically calculated, but when we see the moon appear. The same was true for so many of these solely lunar calendars, sun moon calendars that we will talk about throughout the course of this thing as we realign ourselves to natural time and see its challenges and see its benefits. The Hebrew calendar, which comes from the Babylonian, from the Assyrian, like this: you begin with the first visible moon, with Diana's bow, Diana delivering, midwifing Apollo to Earth. And so interestingly, we were talking last time how strange that we begin our days in the middle of the night. And we're going to get back to that a bit next time too. But for a long time, and in many calendars still, days begin at sunset. And that seems really backwards. It seems like sunrise begins a day. That's what the birds say. So at sunset, why? Because that's where the months begin. So if this is the first day of your month, then the next day will be 24 hours after. And what's the moon going to look like at that time? Another image of Diana's bow that I took from Berkeley a couple of years ago, I think, looking at Mount Tamalpais. And importantly, here we see some city lights. We see the Richmond Bridge. This living in the urban realm has disconnected us from the very imperative portion of time called the fortnight, which is from new to full, or from full to new. If you've ever been out under dark skies, and Amanda fortunately lives in Maui, which offers that experience more than what most of us have, you know at a full moon, you can get around without worrying about stubbing your toe. It's just that you're walking in light of silver instead of light of gold. So it's an amazing thing in Arizona where there are snakes and tarantulas, and I'm out taking pictures of the stars. I try to be nice, but sometimes, the moon kind of ruins that gig because she's so bright, reflecting or delivering the sun's light, that all the stars, kind of the Milky Way, goes away. But what a gift to be able to just get around and see our way, even in the middle of the night. And that essential essence of being human has been taken away by these bright city lights. We have to take it back. So simply following the moon's wax and wane brings you back to that essence of time, and then practicing with it, planting with it, doing much more. We'll get more into that too. I wanted to show this image because it has a lot of earth shine. Okay, so you see the crescent of the moon. This is that Diana's bow phase. It tends to happen one day after new moon, sometimes a day and a half, depending on when the new moon aligned where you are, if sky and weather allows. But we see the whole moon, right? So the crescent is Diana delivering Apollo to Earth, right? So moon midwifing the sun's birth. Sun, moon, me, right? The rest of this, which is called Earth shine, is sun, Earth, moon, Earth. So the sun is bouncing off of our planet and then bouncing off of the moon and coming back to us, which is, if nothing else, a very cool thing to see. It's an amazing thing to contemplate. And I don't have answers here, but I will say that it is a door to a profound temple. One thing I can tell you is that this light is older than this light, because this light traveled from the sun to Earth, and this light traveled from the sun to Earth to the moon to the Earth. Sorry,
When you're
sun.
saying, when you're saying earth shine, what are you talking
I'm
about?
talking about all of the moon that we see that is not the crescent,
Okay,
right?
that's earth shine.
Earth shine, because it literally is. So, and I said this wrong before, so let me say this one more time and try to be slow and very clear, right? Diana's bow is pointing to the sun, Apollo, who is set below. We're looking west at sunset, right?
Mhm.
So this is the first moon of the month, the first visible moon after new moon. She's showing us where the sun is, as of course the sky chakras do. And that crescent light is sun reflected off of our satellite to us, right? So that's typically what moonlight is. It is, of course, sunlight. The rest of what we see in the moon, and you can see the whole rabbit and everything, which we'll talk about another time, that is sun bouncing off of Earth, bouncing off the moon, and coming back to our eyes.
Sun bouncing
Earth, moon, Earth,
earth, moon, earth.
right? So the crescent is sun, moon, Earth, and the rest is sun, Earth, moon, Earth.
And you can see that because of the particular placement of the moon on this
It's
night,
typically
right?
these sliver crescents where we get to see a lot of moonshine. But you'll start noticing it more and more. So, I mean, all the way up to the half moon, you often can see the rest of the moon too. And I just love tripping on like, oh, that's older than that. But is this pure? Because it wasn't contaminated by the earth. There's a lot of fun contemplations there. And I actually think that when we allow ourselves to ask these weird questions, parts of the library of the ancients open up for us. So I wanted to point that out, though really I want to just talk about Diana's bow. All right, so here she's aiming at the sun, which of course is set below, and you see the earth shine here too. You very often see it in these crescents, these sliver crescents. It's Diana's bow. The bow on the other side, which we'll talk more about next week, next episode 3, Hecate's bow, it's often called. So here, Diana's arrows are actually hitting Mercury and Jupiter too.
Whoa, cool.
on the way to the sun. And interestingly, you'll see that for some reason they're not on the same line, and that's like advanced stuff that I'll certainly be teaching in the course. We've got to talk about nodes and dragons and eclipses and all sorts of stuff to get there. I'm
I just wanted to,
rewinding.
Brett, I just wanted to say to the people listening on the podcast, there are gorgeous visuals that are going along with all of this. So you can go to the website or YouTube, and we have a channel on YouTube, Astrology Hub. We have the astrologyhub.com where we put all of our videos as well. So you can see the visuals because it's really, really helpful. I don't know about you guys, but without the visuals, I get lost really fast. So
And I'm
hopefully,
not explaining this in like visual words either. I'm saying this as I point my mouse to things on the
right.
screen, not thinking that this will also be delivered to an audio only audience. So I can get better at that, but not today. So go watch the YouTube version or see it on one of the socials or wherever it is. Okay. So this was the day before. This is the day after you and I spoke last time. It was January 13th. 2012, and I was able to complete my scavenger hunt homework first day, which felt really good. In fact, I'm staring at Mercury out this window right now.
Nice.
I'm going to zoom in here and show, in this case, Stellarium, although I'm going to show some other ones too. But the amazing thing is I knew I was looking at Jupiter and getting ready to say goodbye to Jupiter as an evening star because the sun is overcoming Jupiter, taking him under the beams. And amazingly, the sun will be directly between Earth and Jupiter on full moon this month, which is good magic. That happens Earth, Sun, Jupiter every 399 days. This is Mercury. I've had very well-known astrologers argue with me outside when I'm like, check out Mercury. They're like, Mercury can't be that high. I'm like, that's Mercury. And they break out their little cell phone app, right? And they're like, no, look how low he is. I'm like, your cell phone app screen is a little bit smaller than that one, right? And I want to show a couple examples here because Amanda did mention last time how helpful it can be to have some of these apps. Oh my gosh, I've got to get rid of a picture though to do this. Let's just put that. All right. Sorry.
You did do this at 2 a.m., so we forgive
Well, I
you.
mean, throughout the day. So, but if people have seen my presentations before, I've put a lot of time into them. So, an app that Amanda mentioned is the Star Chart app, which has really beautiful art. Actually, if you pay a little more money for it, you can get a bunch of mythological downloads from it, which is wonderful about the constellations, sometimes planets. Definitely worth it. Um, I will just say that when you start playing with these apps, you're going to wonder, if you haven't before, why the heck Aquarius, Saturn, Moon, Mercury, and Jupiter are in the constellation called Sea Goat. And I appreciate this app calling it Sea Goat, not Capricornus, because signs and constellations are very different things. And that's also true for the sidereal zodiac. And I know that's a lot of gobbledygook for many of you out there. For many of you not, it's something we're really going to have to tune into. And if you start playing with the astronomy apps, you're going to come to face with this idea, like, why would we call this Aquarius if it's not aligned to the Aquarius constellation? And there's very good reasons to answer that question, but they're going to take some time. Okay. I just want to mention that there's a gazillion of these astronomy apps that can be very useful tools. Here's an image of Star Walk, right? And by the way, if any of you astronomy app people are listening to us, sponsor us and we'll only show yours. Okay, anyway, here is an image from the Stellarium app, which I love because I love Stellarium's desktop version, which I'll show in other slides because I had to get rid of the one here. But what I will say is the app for you, astrologers, is like Time Passages or Astro Gold or other chart apps where you can cast the chart. So if you're waving your astronomy app phone around to see what planets are out there, also cast a chart for the same moment, right? And remember, the horizontal line is the ground if you're casting a quadrant house system, which means not whole sign or zero Aries. Like if you're casting Placidus, Porphyry, Campanus, Regiomontanus, like most of the house systems are going to have the horizontal line is the horizon. And for Northern Hemisphere folks, the chart was designed to reflect your sky, In the southern hemisphere, you got to kind of flip it around and look through it, which is hard to do with the phone. It's easier with a piece of paper. That's a long story. We're going to get there another time. There were some comments on the first episode at YouTube, like, hey, stop only talking about the northern hemisphere. It's where my lens lives. It's where this Gregorian calendar was defined. And I try to say things like December solstice instead of winter solstice to think globally while I act locally. So I,
Maybe someday we'll find your Gemini twin who works and lives in the southern hemisphere, and we can have two shows, one northern hemisphere oriented and one southern hemisphere oriented.
right. And here's a deal I'm making. If that's a complaint you have, take a picture of what you're experiencing down there and post it, and I will show it in the episodes. Okay. I used to demand that my students learn both Northern and Southern Hemisphere experience simultaneously. And I found that it offered twice the confusion. And
Yeah.
because our chart is modeled after the Northern Hemisphere sky, even my Southern Hemisphere students now will agree to begin with the Northern Hemisphere thing and then see how we have to adjust it to reflect the Southern Hemisphere sky. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you can hit the now button on apps like Astro Gold. You can look generally south and it's going to show you what the sky is doing as far as where the planets are. So here we see Mercury and Jupiter, right? Mercury coming out of the beams, Jupiter getting chased down by the sun to go into them. And what I was surprised when I put this in the computer to make it a little prettier is there is Saturn.
Ooh.
And Saturn here is only, you can count the degrees. Sun's at 24 and Saturn's at 3, so only 9 degrees away. It's usually so, like the ancients tended to suggest that 15 degrees and they're gone. And it's not true. So I think it's really important for us to connect to these old rules. They are way more rooted in visual astrology, but when they don't work, I like to redefine. Yeah. And that's something we'll be speaking about. So I'm just going to kind of flip through some days here. And here's the next day. Oh, so one more thing about this one. I got to go through all this. You'll find that these app images show the moon above the horizon, but she's right behind this hill, which I call Solstice Hill because it's where the solstice sun sets. This is our backyard. But the next day, certainly the moon had now gotten far enough away from the sun. This is that Diana's bow image that we were looking at before. So here's the image in Stellarium. This is the computer version of this free astronomy software. It's free for Mac and PC. Takes a while to figure out. You'll find a bunch of Stellarium for astrologers videos on YouTube that I created some years ago. They could use or recreate, but it's good and it's free. Stellarium.org. It's a wonderful program to have. When I was just reined in Seattle on the regular as I was becoming a sky guy, it was very difficult. But I use this app a lot to learn a bunch about the sky and fast forward. It would have taken me much longer to learn it from the sky yourself. So the tech, we are in Aquarian time. We are in kind of a dawning of an Aquarian age. We want to make the tech our friend. And we also want to make sure we are good stewards of it. Anyway, so you can see here in Stellarium, I took this picture from Inspiration Point in Berkeley. Anne and Rick, I was on a meeting with them. Sorry for the bad connection, but look at the picture. Anyway, so it was a little bit later in the day. It was 20 minutes later. Saturn had set. I don't think I would have seen them anyway, but you can really see now Jupiter is kind of getting overcome by the red, by the combust stuff. And the old rule is 8.5 degrees from the sun is that combustion. So we'll test that. Let's look at the chart. Chart shows sun at 25 and Jupiter's at 6. Now, I hesitate in some ways to show all these charts because this could really date this episode. And yet these are universal things. Just because they won't be happening in real time if you're watching this a year or two from now, understand that this is how outer planets end their time as evening star. And I'll speak much more about morning star, evening star, how to see that in the chart as we move along. It's a really powerful thing to see. To learn to see the chart in the sky in the chart opens worlds of astrology that the books really can't offer because you are the only text that matters. So I'm going to dip this down and we're just going to look at these beings. So the chart's a little bit less packed and a less confusing, right? We've got the sun, Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury, and the moon. And here we see both Saturn and the sun below the horizon. And the sky agrees with what the chart shows, right? So the app is great because, you get pictures, you get some things that the chart does not show that are a little bit more advanced, but the chart does show Jupiter, Mercury, moon. And so I really encourage folks not to only use the astronomy apps, but also use your astrology app. Start learning to see that the chart is not just a map of your soul, it's a map of the sky, friends. All right, so next day, and it was a little too cloudy. Now, the moon is way up here at sunset. The moon moves on average 13 degrees a day. The sun moves on average 1 degree per day. That means that they separate on average by 12 degrees per day. See these playful numbers that come in again? And we see them again and again and again when we do moon magic. I'm going to bring in the stellarium image here. And we see that, I had to kind of zoom out. Like the moon's much further now in the water bearer constellation. Here's the chart. We can see now that the moon is actually 36 degrees away. That's 1/10 of the wheel. That's a decan. So that's a decan of sky. And so this is part of your scavenger hunt exercise for this month and every month of your entire life. Know that the moon is delivering sunlight to Earth. Diana delivers Apollo's birth. Feel it in your body. This relationship between the moon and the sun, which on charts we see as a phase angle, maybe you can describe as a phase. You will see what those aspects are, like a sextile or a square or a trine or an opposition, which means full moon. You will see that aspect reflected in the way that moon smiles at you. When she's very close to the sun, it's a very thin smile. And as she waxes, it opens up until it's just the full open mouth of awe, right? So there's a couple practices that I love. One is if you, especially at sunset in the waxing half or at sunrise in the waning half, if you point one arm to the sun and one arm to the moon, if you know about aspects, look in the chart, see what the aspect is, feel that aspect in your body, right? So a square is going to have your arms at 90-degree angle to one another. A trine, they're a little more open. It's much more comfortable. Feel it. Look at the face of the moon. If she is 120 degrees from the sun, if she's trine, see what a trine looks like. Only the moon will deliver sunlight to you like this. Now, and remember, in the first episode, we were talking about this old cosmology, which I love, and you loved it too, which is that the stars are simply holes in the veil that shields us from the one only light there is. And that might be too mystical for folks. That's okay. Look, no doubt this is true. The sun is the only one of the planetas, the wanderers, the visible lights, that you will never be able to see with your naked eye where he resides in the zodiac. You will never see what stars the sun is with. You can see the stars that rise before the sun. You can see the stars that set after the sun, but you will burn your retinas trying to see what constellation the sun is held by at any given time. Moon delivers sunlight to Earth. She is the heavenly midwife. If you know your stars, and we'll get into that, if you know your ecliptic stars, and you can see that the moon, for example, let's say is aligned to the Pleiades, and you know the Pleiades mark in our day and age the gateway between tropical Taurus and Gemini. Let's say that means moon's at 1 Gemini. And you see that she's a waxing half moon. That means, and you can see it in her face. We'll see an image of that as we close out today, right? That means she's 90 degrees from the sun. So if the moon's at the Pleiades and you say she's like 1 Gemini and she's perfectly square, that means the sun is 90 degrees before in the zodiac, 1 degree Pisces. So the moon will help us not only receive the sunlight at night when the poetry thrives and doesn't burn our eyes, that beautiful silver reflection that opens our opportunity to dream into a thing and reflect upon a thing. but she can also help us understand, just in the way that the shape of her smile and her placement in the stars, where the sun is placed. Amanda, does that make sense?
Yes. It's like these pieces start to come in and I start to grasp it and then it's like it goes. But every time I hear you talk, it gets more and more understandable.
Yeah, and
So,
that's a lot to say. So let's just like, I didn't type any text up, but it's this. So practices with the moon and the sun during the waxing fortnight. So between
of
new moon and full moon.
okay, so between now and the next time we meet.
Yep.
Okay.
Go outside around sunset. And even during the day, like the moon, if your clouds allow, will be visible every day from now till full moon. Right? She's not just the light of night. They lied to you. So you point one arm to the sun, you point one arm to the moon, and you just feel their phase in your body.
So we're doing this before the sun sets. Did you just say
Yeah,
that?
or at sunset, you can point your hand to the horizon,
Okay.
right?
So you
Right
find
now, they're about square. So when you go out tonight, you're going to feel it's just a little bit shy of 90 degrees that your body's making if you give one hand to the sun and one hand to the moon, if your
okay.
sky allows, right?
Okay.
Then look at a chart, see how far they are from one another, right? So if you look at the chart that's on the screen right now, we see a 2-degree Pisces moon and a 26-degree Capricorn sun. That's 6 degrees and 30. It's 36 degrees, right? And that's 1/10 of the heavenly circle. So when you have that opportunity, you say, oh my gosh, that's what we call a decan, a 36th or 1/10, 36 degrees, right? And you point a hand to the sun, you point a hand to the moon, you're like, wow, that is a thin crescent 36 degrees away. It's like 3 days after new moon on average. And it's like, whoa, right? And you just feel it in your body. It's kind of like a Pac-Man thing going on when they're that close, right? And the next day, the moon's going to open you up and open you up and open you up until you're full, and the full moon's rising at sunset. And then you feel opposition, which is like the warrior pose.
Mm.
Right. And so also cast a chart and look at how far apart. And then like here, you can actually see in that sliver of the moon, it's like, oh, that's a decan. That's 36 degrees. That's how the moon smiles when she's 36 degrees from the sun. That's how like a decan phase delivers sunlight to Earth. So as we were saying before, right, like the sun is the one you can't see. The moon in many ways can help you see it. The moon really can deliver that one light, right? Because the sun is the big hole. It's the one that we're closest to. It is one light pouring through, and it's too bright for us to see. It is great mystery, but the moon will reflect that light in a way that will never, ever, ever, ever repeat. The moon will never reflect the sun the same way twice. Like I literally do not have to get beyond the moon and the sun in a chart with some other moon sun things like lunar nodes and Lilith, and we'll talk about them another time, to show you that every moment is absolutely unique. And that moon will deliver that sunlight to a specific place on Earth in only one unique way, right? All I need is Earth, moon, and sun to show you that every birth, every moment is absolutely unique. Spirit reflects upon itself often, and every time it does, a soul is born. And it must manifest into matter. So I want to play with that another time. That's getting a little bit more mystical. I'm going to return to the astronomy. You definitely want video for this one. Now, notice that we have been watching the moon go this way, away from the sun, day after day, separating by about 12 degrees per day. That's an average, and I'll show you why another time. But very importantly, this is the western sky. So what's going to happen if I play this video, which is a video, Amanda? Where's the moon going to go?
It's going to keep going where it was going, right?
Well, the next day, right? And by the way, she will, but very slowly. So the next day, and we'll see the next day, so there'll be another big jump. But of course, like after this hour with the moon in the 7th house, as the Earth spins, the moon's going to go to set in the west. So this is a very challenging thing. The chart goes both ways. And it's one of the things that most confuses astrologers who are starting to look to the sky. And we're really going to take some time with that. It's going to be one of our devotions next time. And we're going to take a few times to really look at the daily motion and the orbital motion. They're different things called primary and secondary. But for
So I
now,
can tell you, Brett, my head hurts at this
yeah,
point, like
cool.
trying to figure this out. So I'm sure other people can relate, or maybe not, maybe it's just me. But it's like it's definitely a lot when we're not used to watching it. And
Totally. And you can't see it on this screen and understand it. But when you go outside, and I understand that weather's not going to allow everybody at this time, but you know, the moon will rise and shine again, right? The sun will show you her light again. So yeah, when you go out and you just practice with the moon, not only in the chart, but also in the sky, and especially if you have the chart while you're out under the sky, it just starts making sense, right? And so go outside around the same time every day and just watch how the moon is separating from the sun as she waxes and coming back towards the sun as she wanes. But also sit there for a couple hours and watch what happens, because everything's going to set in the west. So here's the next day. Anna and I went to Stinson Beach with the new pup, and the moon's further from the sun, right? And we can see in the chart now that the moon is almost a sextile. She's a sextile minus 13. That's about 45 degrees. It's about what's called the semi-square. And her smile is getting bigger. And if you point one arm to the sun and one arm to the moon, you'll find that your arms are opening up now, right? And so just understand that this is a practice, right? I'm offering scavenger hunt and embodiment practice, which means do the practice and your body will teach you. So these are things that I've seen so many initiate themselves through. And then they're like, oh, obviously, but you got to do it.
yeah.
And we don't learn it in school, or we should start. All right, here's the next day. I'm back at home. I actually had to tilt the camera to get the moon and the sun in the same frame at sunset, because now the moon here's above the tree is getting so far away from the sun. We can see this in the stellarium. She's like a full kind of now getting to the head of the fish, while the sun is in the sea goat. And in the chart, sun's at 28 Capricorn and the moon's at 27 Pisces. So that's what a sextile looks like. Now it's hard to get it on the camera, but basically a sextile shape is how we draw the moon glyph. And when you point one arm to the sun and one arm to the moon, when they're 60 degrees apart, equally two signs apart, and you can feel two signs in the sky in your body. And you can say, wait, if that's two, then that's three, and that's four, that's five, that's six. Yeah, that's like the sky. And then there's six below. And your body just teaches you as the moon delivers sunlight to your eyes. All right, so last one, this was January 17th. Here was yesterday on your solar return, January 18th. And now look, the moon has like fully blasted up above the tree. All right. So I will also go outside tonight, though the sun set some time ago. So I cast this for 6:15, which was 4 minutes ago. So I'm not too far behind. I'll go get a picture of this one. And then we're going to see tomorrow on January 20th, the moon ingress Taurus. This is said to be the degree in which she is exalted. As an honored guest, we see her squaring Saturn. And of course, we want to do all of our astrology. Uranus is there. I don't even have Uranus in this chart. But importantly, look at the sun's at 1:15, moon's at 3.5. So this is actually after the exact square, right? But that's basically what this phase looks like. And if you point one hand to the sun and one hand to the moon, you feel a square. And it's a tense feeling, right? It's pretty cool. I'll show you some other weird astronomy about squares, which in Hawaii they call the olis, and just say give people some space. And it's a time for introspection. It's a cool reflection of things that we say as Western astrologers too. I will show that this one in the Southern hemisphere looks opposite. But before I do, just look at the first quarter moon. It's edgy. It's literally edgy. And this beautiful being who is so curvy, moon, has that weird straight line. Something changes at this time, right? So this is the image of a opening square or a first quarter moon or a waxing half moon, and I'll get into why all those different names and how they describe the same thing in different ways. This is the image from the northern hemisphere with the moon waxes from her right to the left, which is west to east, but west to east in the southern hemisphere is from the left to the right. So I just wanted to do that for our friends south of the equator. And we'll end here with this full chart for the first quarter moon. And this question, shouldn't, if the lunation, new moon to new moon, is the month, then 1/4 of that should be a week, right? 4 weeks in a month. So we had new moon on January 12th, but 1/4 of the way through the cycle is 8 days later, or like 7.5. So what happened there? All right, so we're going to unpack that next time when we talk about what is a week, what is a month, what is a day. So you'll hear this from the new age that time is just an illusion, and maybe this place isn't real anyway. But in the realness of matter that we experience, the earth spins, the earth orbits, the moon orbits, the lights tell time. And we've had to create averages and approximations, and it's okay. Also, we should realign ourselves to nature time.
Mm.
And that's kind of what I've devoted myself to in these first explorations. So,
Love
if
it.
you do the practices, the sky will teach you. I promise you.
We trust you. We're going to do the practices, right, everybody? And then we're going to report back our experience of the practices. So,
Do
Brett,
your
thank
homework.
you so
And
much.
let's say one more thing, because you might be in yoga class and maybe it's raining for another week in Hawaii or wherever you are. Some of you are snowed in Canada or whatever it may be. You can still stand up and put your right hand towards the west and say that sun setting every day. And when the moon is new, which means the moon and the sun are one, you kind of pancake your hands over on that side. And then every day, just separate your left hand from the right hand by like 12 degrees. You'll figure it out and feel those different phases and just let your body teach you. So we're not just saying, oh, square's hard and trine's the most benefic and sextile's less benefic and da da da, right? And we're just regurgitating as we were programmed to believe learning equals in school. We're actually having an embodied experience, a natural experience. And then, of course, the other side of this is to do the research, do the chart work, see if these theories hold up, right? So we learn as astrologers by casting a lot of charts, by sitting with people. I sat with a woman today. I told her a story. It was not her at all. But it was a story that she just wrote as a novel that's getting distributed this year.
Whoa,
Right?
that's amazing.
I was like, okay, I gotta learn to see that. Like, what just happened there, right? And the story I told, it was the same as what she's lived, but through different characters. It was very interesting, and I was like, all right, like it's gonna take me some years to understand that, because right now I like totally don't get it. And I thought I was like crystal balling, and I was gonna hit her with like the story of her life, because sometimes I like to do that, and it was like flail. But we stay with it and we got to someplace really good, right? But I want to share that because it's funny, but also because the sky works like this. You're not going to learn astronomy in a day, right? You're going to go outside, you're going to sit with this infinite, amazing wonder of the sky. And if you open yourself to receive the wisdom, she will teach you. And so all I can do is show you little tricks that will open doors, not to my temple, but to yours.
Beautiful, Brett. Thank you so, so much. I love this starting point of helping us realign to natural time. This is just a personal philosophy and it could be totally off, but I feel that our disconnect from natural time is just enough to create a sense of chaos, a feeling of chaos, a feeling of something's just not quite right. So it's, again, like a working hypothesis. I don't have any proof of this, but it seems to me that coming back into alignment with the natural rhythm, which I have experienced in my life in the ways that I've done it so far, but taking it deeper with you is going to be really, really amazing to see what that does for people, for all of you, and your sense of self and your sense of having a place on the earth and feeling connected to the world around you. Um,
And feeling the opportunity to disconnect from fake time, right? So, I
right.
mean, you said it, it's absolutely true. There's a gift and a curse. And I would take it another level further and say that it can be used to manipulate people so that edginess is steered into fear and anger and
Mhm,
reaction to whatever's on the TV in any given time.
mhm,
Also, however, it is the amazing gift that will start to awaken you. It's that white rabbit tattoo that Neo sees at the beginning of the Matrix. It's that something's wrong here. And so we've just been kind of conditioned. We signed some contract to accept these calendars. But I mean, how are we going to do it? We say, okay, 5 p.m. Pacific, we've got to have some convention. And everybody who's been following Astrology Hub's inner circle, and especially doing the ceremonies and the classes, like, you are being realigned to natural time. But we say, okay, let's have a full moon class on Wednesday at this calendar date and this time, right? Instead of saying, okay, like Mercury's day on 15 Leo moon or whatever, right? And we don't want to like have people miss class, but I'm really excited in bringing people not only back to natural time, but giving the opportunity to have some code where if they speak nature time, nobody's going to know like when they're going to meet the other awakened folks who are chasing that rabbit down whatever rabbit hole uh, spirit wants us to
Oh my
travel.
gosh, that's so fun and mystery school-esque. I love it. Thank you. Brett, thank you so much for this. Everybody that was commenting last week is so excited about this new series. And I am too. Like, I look forward to it. And I'm gonna do my best to do all this, the scavenger hunts, and we'll just keep going. And like you said, I mean, I think about humans would spend their entire life under the sky every night, looking at it, connecting with it, wondering about it, charting it, trying to make sense of it. And in some ways, I feel a little bit behind at 43, like starting to get into it. But I know what you're going to say. There's no behind, and no shaming. And
No
if I
one gave
shame,
us it. No one gave it to us.
yeah,
I mean, look how many humans now will never experiencing a waxing or a waning moon, who
right.
will just never know, who will live an entire human life with never receiving the sunlight midwife by the moon. Like, I'm crying. It's a tragedy. And it is what will turn us into these cyborgs, right? So that's why my devotion's so strong. It's also why we went long. And next time I wake up at 2 a.m., I'm going to try better to go back to sleep. A little less slides next time, because I also want to honor that point where you hit overwhelm, Amanda, which means everybody did, right? And so we want to
Potentially.
be really careful with that and tend to that. So I'm appreciative of you honestly and courageously sharing and speaking up. It matters so much, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening would say the same. So if you listen to this again, take a break when that happens. Take a walk in the woods,
Good.
contemplate, integrate, and then come back for the rest of it.
Mm. Well, I, for one, am about to leave the house, go meet my daughters and my love. We're going to go to the ocean and have a celebration for my fake birthday.
Happy fake birthday to you. Please give my love to your crew, and may the moon shine some beautiful light onto you tonight, Amanda. Thank you for this opportunity. Thanks everybody for listening in. Please send us your pictures of the moon, of you doing moon sun yoga, and we'll see you next week.
Awesome. Speaking of moon sun yoga, I actually have my very favorite yoga instructor who speaks astrology, although she doesn't know she's doing it in class all the time. She's
Mm.
coming on the show tomorrow. We're doing a special edition. We're going to talk about the sun moon channels and how anyways, this is going to be so fun. So she's tomorrow. So if you want to, we're going to do some breath work. It's going to be a day where I feel breath work is going to be really important. So we're going to do that together. We're going to talk yoga and astrology and electromagnetic fields and karma and all kinds of cool stuff. So I will look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow for that. Brett, thank you. We'll be here same time, same place next week. And check out the Songs of the Soul, astrologyhub.com/Song of the Soul. And what else? Thanks for being here.
Aloha.
Aloha, and thanks for being a part of our community. And I'll catch you on the next episode.